Everyone. I see that it is the top of the hour, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. It is just a true pleasure to have each of you here for the November edition of Cap Talk Techs. Cap Tech Talks. My goodness, I might need a little bit more coffee. These webinars through the fall are being presented by the Center for Women in Cyber. It's called the Cyber Leadership Series. And the Center for Women in Cyber has selected experts, both men and women, to present on cyber-related topics. This is the third of them. There's one more, and I'll talk more about the one in December toward the end of our webinar together. But right now, let's go ahead and get started with the session. And by the way, it is being recorded, and we'll be sending a link to the recording to everyone who's registered for the session. Today, the webinar will be Banking on Security, Transferring Cybersecurity Culture to SMEs, or Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises or Businesses, presented by Tom Bazdar, and I will be introducing Tom in a little bit. Here's the agenda that we'll be following today. I'm going to talk just very briefly about Capital, give a few housekeeping or session pointers. Then Kimberly Mansell will be coming on to talk about the Center for Women in Cyber briefly, and then we'll get right into the presentation, and I'll introduce the presenter. The bulk of our time together is with our presentation today. I always laugh a little bit to myself when I have these slides having to do with Capital, because looking at the registry of guests, I know that many of you have vast familiarity with our organization, but there are always a few that don't know much about our university. And so we like to say that we are been around for a long time. We were established in 1927, so in this decade we'll celebrate our 100th anniversary. And we're one of the few private institutions and universities in the United States that is specifically devoted to technical and STEM topics. The university offers STEM-related degrees all the way from the associate, bachelor, master, and doctoral levels. We're also a fully accredited institution, and we're accredited with the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. We'll talk just a little bit more about that toward the end of the presentation. Here's some housekeeping, and then we'll be getting into Kimberly's presentation and the main presentation. We'll answer questions at the conclusion of the presentation, but you can actually enter them at any time in the text chat, and we'll be monitoring those, and we'll scoop them up at the end of the presentation and answer as many as we possibly can. Microphones and webcams are not being activated for participants, so the way that we want you to communicate with us is via the text chat. We'll be sending a link to the recording and to the slides to send to both you who are joining us for the live session, as well as for everyone who's registered for this. And also the presentation will appear on the webinar webpage early next week. Finally, we'll offer a participation certificate for 1 hour that's available upon request, and I will talk about how you get that at the end of our time together today. With that, I want to introduce the floor to Kimberly Mansell, who is the series host from the Center for Women in Cyber. So Kimberly, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here as usual. My name is Kimberly Mansell. I am the Director of Cybersecurity and Aerospace for the Maryland Department of Commerce. And I have the pleasure of serving on the executive board for the Center for Women in Cybersecurity. We do have a mission statement that is focused on empowering women of all ages to pursue cyber careers through these presentations such as this and hands-on activities and mentoring our CWC community. We provide direction, encouragement, and support to this next generation of cyber leaders. And as I said, this is really for women regardless of age or background. A little bit more about our Capital Technology University Center for Women in Cyber. We're focused on, as I said, empowering women of all ages to focus on careers in cybers. We would like to address the growing need for women professionals and leaders in the cyber field. Ironically enough, the technology field's gender gap has been a persistent challenge throughout the years. The CWC, we encourage women to seek opportunities in this important and developing field of cybersecurity so that their contributions can be embraced, because of course we have many contributions and perspectives to provide, and they're very valuable. to everybody within the organizations that we work with. But the CWC, we provide resources, direction, and positive support needed for success in achieving those professional and educational goals. We are very pleased and very passionate about the quest to develop this next generation of diverse cyber leaders. So with that, it's my pleasure to hand this back to Bill Gibbs so we can continue on our presentation today. So thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Yes, and we will continue on. Let me introduce our new presenter, or the presenter for today, excuse me, Tom Vazdar. Tom is a committed cybersecurity expert, program leader, and ethical team advocate. He is the founder and director of Riscoria Advising and Professional Services, where he serves as a cybersecurity strategist. He's also served in senior management roles such as Chief Security Officer and Chief Information Officer. He specializes in the intersection of risk management, policy development, and compliance with a special focus on the banking industry, and that is what we're talking about today. He is based in Europe, and he has served on a number of advisory boards. He's a regular guest speaker at international cyber conferences and universities, and he has worked with international organizations such as Europol, ENISA, the European Payments Council, and the European Cooperation in Science and Technology Association. He's actually pursuing a doctoral degree in economics and global security at the University of Zagreb in Croatia, and is a certified information systems security professional, CISSP. Now, forgive us here for a moment as we make the transition between his slide deck and mine. So I'm going to stop sharing and allow him to share. So let me stop my share. And now let's see if we can get his sharing started.
Okay, just give me a second here. So we're going to share. Okay,
and there we go. I can see your slides.
There we go. Excellent, excellent. So Bill, thank you very much for the great introduction. And just to say that I've been following really for the past year or more longer, all the webinars that CapTech is organizing. And this is such a great opportunity to everybody to get educated. And there's so many great topics. So one of the topics was in May of this year was about small businesses, and in cybersecurity and small businesses. So this actually inspired me, to propose, why don't we do something on the cultural topic, how to transfer the knowledge that banks have, because I used to serve for many years also as the chief security officer, working especially in cybersecurity. So my idea was actually, how do we transfer this knowledge, this powerful knowledge that banks have? How do we transfer this to the small businesses? And as we know, small businesses, they cover more than 99% of the world economy. They're actually the main pillar of the economy, and unfortunately they're not that well protected. So first, for the introduction, good day to everyone. I'm based in Europe, in Zagreb, Croatia. I'm really thrilled to have you all join us today here for this webinar. I heard there are many people sign up for this, which is really great. I'm happy for that. So today I will talk about the topic that is vital for every business. And this is vital also for small and medium-sized businesses or small to medium-sized enterprises, depending where you are. In Europe, they're SMEs. In America, they're SMBs, but we know what we're talking about. So our focus will be here on banking, on security. I'm playing with words here, because I'm coming also from the banking industry, and how to transfer this cybersecurity culture to SMEs. So we'll start here with the basics first. We'll imagine cybersecurity, and I don't know how much everybody's familiar with cybersecurity, but let's imagine cybersecurity as a shield. And this is the shield that protects your business from digital threats. The same way that the lock does for your home, when you leave home. So in the digital world, this shield is not just nice to have, this is essential. This is something you must have. And the challenge is that while big companies, they may have large shields, SMEs often they find themselves with smaller, less robust ones, and this is mainly due to limited resources that they have. This is the common issue with every company, and the lack also of specialized knowledge in cybersecurity. And now you may wonder, if you are a small business owner, how can you, as SME, how can you strengthen your cybersecurity shield? And this is where we can actually learn from the best. I consider the best, the banking sector as the ones who invested heavily, into cybersecurity measures. And banks for many years, they have been at the forefront of cybersecurity. They're developing those strong shields, as they say, that protect against digital threats, against cyber threats. And they're doing it because the nature of their business demands this. They deal with sensitive financial data, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, making them prime targets for cyber attacks. And over the years, they've built a culture around cybersecurity. Because there's corporate culture, around corporate culture, we build risk culture, around risk culture, we build cybersecurity culture, and this is the culture that I believe can be adapted and can be applied also to SMEs. So for the rest of this presentation, I'll talk more about how SMEs can adopt this cybersecurity culture from banks. So here, let's think about it. Have you ever considered how much of our lives and businesses are now online? From shopping and banking to managing business operations, customer data. The digital world is connected with nearly every aspect of our daily activities. And now this brings us to our next segment here. And this is understanding the significance of cybersecurity in the digital age. And we will explore here two main points. First one is SMEs. We know they're vulnerable, but they're vital players in the economy. As I said, more than 99%, it's small business. They run the economy, and we'll talk about how SMEs, how they play this important role in the economy, and why protecting them from cyber attacks is essential. And then we'll talk also about the banking sector, which I'm taking as a cybersecurity role model for SMEs. And we'll talk here how the banking industry has developed robust cybersecurity practices and how these practices can serve as a blueprint for SMEs to strengthen their digital defenses. So by understanding the significance of cybersecurity, this is the first step towards building a safer environment for your small business. So we'll move to the next slide, which is adopting banking strategies for SMEs. So after exploring why cybersecurity is critically important, especially for SMEs, we'll talk about some practical solutions. And our focus in this segment is in adopting those banking strategies, as I said, for SMEs, and we'll break this down into these three key points. First one is bridging the cybersecurity knowledge gap. And this is about understanding the basics of cybersecurity. And just like learning first aid, that first aid can help you manage emergencies at home. Understanding security basics can help you also protect your business from common digital threats. And then second, banking strategies, they can serve as a blueprint for SMEs, and we'll look here at specific strategies that are used by banks and like how they build their defenses and how this can be adapted to fit the scale and the needs of your small business. And finally, my goal is also to transfer this knowledge, from the financial industry to SMEs, so you can actually enhance your cybersecurity readiness. And this presentation is all about awareness and giving you some know-how how to proceed from here. And you heard me talk about cybersecurity culture, So let's go a little bit in the past and explain what is actually cybersecurity culture and what are the origins. And I really believe that's important to understand how our current practices and how our beliefs have been shaped. And this is why this brings us to the history of cybersecurity culture. The concept has its roots in the early days of computing and early days of internet. So you can see here on the slide, 1960s, 1980s. This is actually when everything started. The concept that was then developed, transitioned to 1990s. First, initially, cybersecurity was concern for government and for military organizations. And the focus was on safeguarding sensitive information and protecting against espionage. And in these early stages, the approach to cybersecurity was largely reactive. And this is really important to remember, that it was reactive and it was technology focused. But with the advent of the internet and its widespread adoption, cybersecurity became a concern for businesses and eventually for the general public. So the rise of e-commerce, online banking and digital communication, it introduced new vulnerabilities and it brought cybersecurity into everyday lives of people. So over time, there was a gradual shift from being purely reactive, being technologically centric approach, to a more proactive and a holistic one. Holistic meaning that you're actually employing not only technology, you're deploying processes, technology, people. That's all a holistic approach to cybersecurity. So this shift here, it recognized the importance of human factor in cybersecurity. So training, awareness programs, policies, they're all aimed at influencing behavior of people and also building a culture of security, which became an integral component of cybersecurity strategies. So in recent years, the integration, we're going to talk here now about a little bit about cyber psychology that has really strong connection to cybersecurity. So in recent years, the integration of cyber psychology into cybersecurity culture, it marks one key point. It's a significant evolution. It represents a deeper understanding that cybersecurity, it's not only about technology. It's also about how people interact with technology, And this understanding has led to more sophisticated and more human-centric cybersecurity strategies. So one of the core aspects of cyber psychology is understanding how human perceptions, how human decisions and errors, how they all influence cybersecurity. And every day, people make countless decisions while interacting with technology, from clicking a link, because we're all happy clickers, right? We like to click on links, and also to sharing personal information. We just share because somebody asked, So all these actions, they're influenced by how people perceive risk, convenience, urgency. They can all strengthen or they can weaken cybersecurity defenses. So key concepts in cyber psychology, such as cognitive biases, social engineering, and decision fatigue, they'll play a significant role in cybersecurity. And I'll give you here one example. A common cognitive bias is optimism bias. This is where individuals believe that they're less likely to be the victims of cybercrime. And I've seen this so many times, talking to different companies, smaller companies, even bigger companies, they would always say, yeah, cyber criminal, we understand, it exists, but we are so small, we're not of interest to anyone. And many of these companies became victims of ransomware, only because they had too much optimism that they're too small, nothing is going to happen to them, they're unimportant. Which is completely wrong way of thinking. So as I said, this can lead to lax security practices. So understanding all these psychological concepts, it helps us in anticipating and in mitigating all the human errors. So when we talk about cyber psychology, it's instrumental in designing cybersecurity strategies that account for human behavior. This is the key, and it's not enough to have the most advanced technology. Companies usually try to solve problems by buying more technology. This is not the solution, The solution is that we need to ensure that these technologies, they align with how people think and how people behave. Okay, next slide here. So now let's focus here on a specific sector that faces unique cyber psychological challenges. So this is the banking sector, and this is also the fintech industry. So these sectors, they're prime targets for cyber criminals, making a psychologically informed cyber defense strategy essential. So the financial sector, it's particularly vulnerable due to the sensitive nature of the data that's involved, and the high level of trust that is required by customers. And cyber criminals, they often exploit this trust. And if you lose trust, you lose your business. So human errors, and psychological vulnerabilities, they're all being exploited to conduct fraud, phishing attacks, and other types of cyber crimes. So in the banking sector, it's crucial to develop a cyber defense strategy that considers both the psychological profile of the users and the typical tactics that are used by attackers. And all this involves understanding the customer behaviors, such as this goes to the behavioral analytics, so such as how they interact with online banking platforms, and educating them about common cyber threats and the psychology behind them. You see, banks, due to their nature, due to the nature of their business, they have always been prime targets for cyber criminals. And I have seen so many different types of attacks. It's just amazing, like watching a movie, But this has pushed banks, to develop cybersecurity measures. And the measures are, first, it's the concept of the 3 lines of defense. So the first line of defense is people, who are doing regular day-to-day operations. So they're basically day-to-day defenses. The second line involves risk management and also compliance checks. And finally, the third line of defense, it's called audit. Auditors, IT auditors, internal auditors, they do the thorough check to ensure that everything is as secure as it should be. There are annual checks, monthly checks, all kind of different checks. Working for a bank, you're dealing with lots of audits, lots of compliance and everything. Then we are talking here about the proactive approach. You heard me talking before about being reactive and culture shifting to being proactive now. So this is what banks are doing. Not all of them, but major banks, they already shifted to proactive approach, meaning that banks don't just wait for an attack to happen. They actually actively look for potential threats. And this involves constantly scanning the digital horizon and also updating your defenses. You're never 100% sure that you have everything. Every day it's a challenge. Then there is risk management. This is about understanding and preparing for what ifs. What if happens? Banks assess potential risks and they have plans in place also to mitigate those risks. Then it's continuous education and training. Banks, they regularly train their staff in cybersecurity best practices. It's really important that every person understands its role in a company. Then leadership-driven focus. In an ideal situation, cybersecurity will be utilizing a top-down approach, and this starts from the leadership and flows down to every employee. And then this creates a culture where everyone is aware of and committed to cybersecurity. So for SMEs, these strategies, they offer valuable lessons also in building a strong cybersecurity foundation. Okay, let's talk here about the contemporary context for SMEs. By increasing importance of a strong cybersecurity culture and the challenges that are faced by SMEs in the digital environment, in cyberspace, we can talk here about limited resources, about the lack of expertise, about the reactive approach, supply chain vulnerabilities. So I'm not going to read everything that's on the screen now, but we'll have to turn our focus closer, to all these unique cybersecurity challenges and also realities that are faced by small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, for many of you who joined us here today and who are running or working for an SME, the digital age that we're living in, it brings both and you're aware of that, of course. It brings both opportunities and it brings challenges. Now, so agility and innovation, they're all strengths. But when it comes to cybersecurity, there are several hurdles that we need to overcome. So let's actually break this down. That's on the screen when we talk first about limited resources. Unlike large corporations, SMEs, they often operate with constrained budgets and personnel, which is making it tough also to allocate sufficient funds and necessary manpower for cybersecurity. When I talk here about the lack of expertise, many SMEs, they don't have dedicated IT staff, they don't have cybersecurity experts, of course, and this can leave gaps in your digital defenses because you're not ready. Reactive approach, as I said, this is very common, not only for SMEs, for many companies, but it's very common, and it's very common to address cybersecurity issues only after a breach has occurred, rather than proactively preventing them. Supply chain, this is actually very important. For the past couple of years, we hear a lot about supply chain attacks and supply chain vulnerabilities. So for SMEs, they're often part of a larger supply chain. And the breach in any part of a supply chain, if you're making something for somebody else, a breach there in this chain, it can impact everyone. Basically, if you have a loophole, you're transferring this loophole to your partner company. This is why it's important that everybody in the supply chain is properly secured. Then it's the lack of employee training. Without regular cybersecurity training, employees, they might become the weakest link in your security chain. Then I mentioned before also compliance. When I talk about compliance, navigating all this complex world of digital compliance, it's really difficult. Regulations, they every few months basically you have a new regulation. This is really difficult to follow, and just I can only imagine, for a small business how difficult it is to be compliant with everything. Then it's the rapidly evolving threat landscape. The speed at which new cyber threats emerge, it can be really overwhelming, and it's making it really hard to stay ahead. So while these challenges, they may seem daunting, understanding them, this is the first step towards developing effective defenses. And we will explore now how you can learn from the banking industry's cybersecurity strategies, to overcome these hurdles and to fortify your SME against cyber threats. This brings us now to an interesting slide. It's about learning from the banking industry. So we will explore this one by one. Proactive approach. Just like banks, SMEs, they need to anticipate and they need to prepare for cyber threats, and not just react to them. You need to be prepared for them. You need to anticipate what's coming. Risk management, this involves understanding the risks that your business faces and having plans to mitigate them. So it's not only business risk, it's also insecurity, cybersecurity. Which risks do you have? And you put them in your strategy. Then it's continuous learning. The digital world, as we know, it's always evolving, and so should your cybersecurity knowledge. And this is a never-ending process of staying informed and staying updated. Then investment in technology. Investment in technology, extremely important. This is something where we have always budget constraints, and investing in basic cybersecurity technology, it's really essential, and this is about choosing the right tools that give you the best value for your money. But I skip this leadership involvement. Security comes from the top. So everybody who is in senior management position, that's the person actually that should propagate cybersecurity, risk management, and pushing it down on everybody else. The whole company needs to work in this environment where everybody thinks the same about cybersecurity. We are not clicking on suspicious links. We are not clicking on suspicious links. So this should be the common understanding. Then here is incident response plan. Having this plan in place for potential breaches, this is crucial. And as I said, this is like having a first aid kit. You hope you never need it, but it's actually important and it's vital to have it just in case something happens. Regulatory compliance. As I said, keeping with legal and regulatory requirements, this is a must. But it's about playing by the rules to avoid penalties and to protect your customers' data. Third-party risk management. If you're part of supply chain, this is also extremely important. So everything that we mentioned before here, this is the learning from the banking industry. Supply chain, again, banks, they have many different vendors who are in their supply chain, who are providing different types of services to them. They have to ensure that their partners also take cybersecurity seriously. Important thing is customer education. Now, in educating your customers about cybersecurity, this is the key also, because they're also part of your security chain. It also helps in building trust, and it also protects them from becoming participants in cybercrime. And then for the end, I have cybersecurity culture. Now, fostering this cybersecurity culture that values and understands the importance of cybersecurity, this is the key. So let's talk a little bit more about cybersecurity culture, about cultivating a culture. So cybersecurity is not just about technology. It's about people. And human behavior plays a crucial role in both creating vulnerabilities and defending against cyber threats. Understanding psychological factors such as motivation, perception, and decision-making process, it can all help in predicting and in preventing risky cyber behaviors. So cyber-psychology, it provides insights into how individuals interact with the technology, including their responses to cyber threats and adherence to security protocols. So how cyber-psychology helps in shaping behaviors? It studies how psychological principles apply in the digital world, and it helps in understanding why individuals might fall prey to cyber attacks like phishing, and how to motivate them towards safer practices. So insights from cybersecurity can guide the development of a more effective cybersecurity training programs. Very important. So what is really cybersecurity? So this is the study of the human mind and the behavior in the context of our interaction with technology. So just like psychologists, they study how people think and how people feel, how people behave. Cyber psychologists, they focus on how we interact with digital technologies and the internet. And why is this important for cybersecurity, you may wonder? It's important because many security breaches are not just the result of sophisticated hacking, but they're often due to human error or just to the plain oversight. And understanding how people perceive, how people decide, how they act in the digital space, this can all significantly enhance our cybersecurity strategies. So let's explore how cyber psychology helps us in shaping safer cyber behaviors. First, it's knowing what motivates people to follow or ignore security protocols, or why they might fall for scams like phishing. This is crucial. And it's about getting into the mindset of both the users and potential attackers. Then cybersecurity, it provides insights into how to encourage safer online practices, and this could be through more effective training programs or through designing systems that are intuitive and user-friendly. So by applying these insights, we can create cybersecurity training that resonates with more employees, making them active participants in protecting the businesses. And cultivating, this is the title of the slide, cultivating a strong cybersecurity culture. It's about integrating this understanding of human behavior with our technical defenses. So it's, as I said at the beginning, this is a holistic approach. People, process, technology. This is where technology and psychology work hand in hand to protect your small business from cyber threats. So as we move forward, think of cybersecurity not just as a set of rules and tools, but also as a part of your organizational culture, where every employee plays a vital role in safeguarding the digital aspects of your business. Okay, next slide. Here we'll explore why leadership involvement, why leadership involvement is not just important, but why it's also essential in building and maintaining a strong cybersecurity culture. Leadership in any organization, it sets the tone for its culture and for its priorities. This culture, corporate culture, is connected to your mission, to your vision, to your beliefs of your company, etc. So when it comes to cybersecurity, the involvement and commitment of top-level management is actually what drives the seriousness and effectiveness of the entire program. And leaders who are actively engaged in cybersecurity initiatives, they send a clear message to the entire organization. And this is, cybersecurity is a priority for this company. And this commitment can manifest in different ways. First, it's resource allocation. You may recall this is what I mentioned at the beginning, issue with the resources. So you need to do some resource allocation. Leaders, they decide where resources are allocated, including investments in cybersecurity tools and training. Then, secondly, policy development and enforcement. Strong policies, they are the backbone of cybersecurity, and the leadership is key in developing and enforcing these policies. Then we have, at the end, it's creating a culture of security, and this is awareness. First awareness. Leaders who emphasize cybersecurity in their communication, they help foster a culture where every employee understands their role in protecting the organization. So for those of you who are leading small businesses here, your role in cybersecurity, it cannot be overstated. It's about more than just approving budgets for security software. It's about being actively involved in the creation and implementation of cybersecurity strategies. And your involvement can make the difference between a team that is alert and prepared versus a team that is indifferent to cyber threats. So as I move forward, I really encourage you all the leaders here today, to reflect on how can you strengthen your commitment to cybersecurity. And which takes me to the next slide, which is on risk management. Really, really, really cool topic, So let's break down the key elements in implementing effective risk management. All those strategies for risk management. First, it's identifying and understanding threats, and this is the first step in risk management. This is where it starts. You need to identify. It involves keeping up to date with the types of cyber threats that could impact your business. Then planning for potential breaches. Once you know the threats, the next step is to plan. So this includes having systems and protocols in place to protect your data and your IT infrastructure. Third, it's learning from incidents and near misses. So what do we mean here? Every incident, whether it impacts your business directly or not, it offers valuable lessons. And it's important to analyze these incidents and then also to learn from them. So for SME owners, and employees that work there, I understand that diving into this risk management, it may be a little bit overwhelming. If you never did it, it may look really complicated, but it's really not. Remember, you have to remember that it's not about eliminating all risk. You need to think about it. And you'll never get rid of the risk. This is impossible. But this is about understanding risks and having a plan to manage this risk effectively. So as we continue here, think of risk management not as something that is a one-time task, but this is an ongoing process, which is integral integral to the health and to the safety of your business in cyberspace. And as I said before, this is about being proactive, about being vigilant, and always ready to adapt. This is the key. Okay, this slide is about continuous education and training. Another really important thing, cybersecurity. This is a field that never stands still. The threats that we face, they're constantly evolving. They're becoming every day. There's something new. They're becoming more sophisticated. It's really difficult to keep pace with everything what's happening. So this means that what worked yesterday might not be enough for tomorrow. You always have to adapt. So let's break this down to what this continuing, education and training, what they entail. So first, it's emphasizing the role of ongoing cybersecurity training, meaning regular training sessions. They can help keep cybersecurity at the forefront of everyone's mind in your organization. Then, second, developing effective cybersecurity training. Good one. So this program should be engaging. They have to be relevant. They need to be understandable for all employees, regardless of their technical background. And it's about making cybersecurity basically accessible to everyone. So you don't just throw different education at different people. It must be targeted. You need to know who needs to know what. Not everybody needs to know everything, but some basics everybody needs to know. The third one, incorporating cyber psychology into training. Really important, understanding how people interact with technology. This can make training more effective. And it's not just about how, but it's also about the whys, behind the safe cyber practices. For every company, it's also important is measurement, measuring the impact of this training, and because it's really important to assess how these training programs are affecting your cybersecurity posture. Are employees more aware? Are they following the best practices? This assessment helps in continuously improving the training process. Then it's creating a culture of continuous learning. As I said, this is not a one-time thing, So encouraging a mindset where learning is about cybersecurity is an ongoing process. So this is not one-time event, it's about building a culture where staying informed and staying vigilant, this is part of everyone's job. And this brings me now to my last slide, which is conclusion. Cybersecurity is not optional. This is a necessity for every small, medium-sized business in today's digital world in cyberspace. Everybody who is operating in digital world, in cyberspace, needs to understand that you have to deploy proper measures. And they're not only technology, as I said, there are people also. So strong cybersecurity culture is as important as technological defenses. Then proactive risk management and continuous learning, this is vital, as we said. Leadership-driven cybersecurity approach, this is a model for SME success. So in this webinar, we have covered a lot of ground. And of course, I could talk for hours about different aspects, showing methodology, methodologies, how kill chain works, meaning that this is the methodology developed by Lockheed Martin, showing how the cyber attack actually looks from the reconnaissance till monetization. But this is not the topic of today's webinar. So here we have covered a lot of ground, and I really want to thank you all for staying engaged. And what I want to say is also that we must recognize that cybersecurity is not an option, and this is necessity for every company, and in the age where we live, ensuring the safety and security of our online activities, this is really important. As we said at the beginning, you have locks at home. This is as important as locking your door at night. So for SMEs, this means understanding their cybersecurity is an integral part of doing business. This is not just an afterthought. And today we have also learned that the strong cybersecurity culture is equally important as technological defenses. So it's not enough to have the latest security software or hardware. If your employees are not trained how to use this software hardware, or if our leadership isn't committed to cybersecurity. It's about creating an environment where every team member understands their role in protecting the company's digital assets. There was one more key takeaway. This is the importance of proactive risk management and its continuous learning. So cyber threats, they're ever evolving, as I said before. And staying on one step ahead requires constant vigilance and also adaptation. But you're never going to be one step ahead of criminals. You'll probably, most likely, you'll be always behind. But at least you have to do the risk assessment. You have to give it a try to understand actually that you need to protect your business. So this includes regular risk assessments, employee training, staying informed about the latest cybersecurity trends and threats. And finally, a leadership-driven cybersecurity approach. This is a model for SME to be successful, for their success. Leaders, they set the tone for how seriously an organization takes its cybersecurity responsibilities. And by championing a culture of security, leaders, they can inspire their teams to be more mindful and more proactive in their daily digital interactions. And with these words, I will finish my presentation. I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn who is willing. And Bill, I'm giving you the opportunity to take the presentation back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. I was just looking at the questions. I don't see, Jenny, if you could repost the question back into the chat box. I have not enabled. Apparently you have questions ability, but I don't have the ability to access the question and answer box. Okay, here's the question that Jenny asks. What challenges have you faced in making this successful? And I want to also, before I have our presenter answer that question, I want to note that he referred early in his presentation to another webinar that was actually presented by our co-presenter, Kim Menzel. And I think that, Kim, if you have any comments regarding this, you've been working directly with small businesses on some of these very same principles. In fact, it's remarkable how intertwined the two of you are in terms of your professional interests. But so I'm going to open that floor to both Kim and to Tom to answer the question, what are some of the challenges that small businesses are finding to make this successful, in addition to what he's mentioned in the presentation, of course?
Yes. Tom, would you like to go ahead and have the first shot at that, since you are our honored presenter here?
Sure. I'm happy to. Well, small businesses, as I said, they have the big issue is with resources. As I said, having resources. This is, but it's not only small businesses. It's basically every company. But for small businesses, it's especially difficult. And also budgets. This is something that you have to just plan for, allocate. And you need to understand what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing by yourself, you need to seek for help. And there are many organizations that can provide help. Understand not everybody is a cybersecurity expert. And this is not actually, if this is not your business orientation to be cybersecurity expert. If you're doing something else, you still need to protect your business. I worked for manufacturing also industry, and this was really challenging, to secure everything, but it's always about building a strategy. Strategy is the key. Once you build a strategy, then you can do your risk assessments. When you do your risk assessments, you basically identify where do you have to invest. Is it people? Is it technology? Do you have to change processes? And this brings us also to this cultural thing that I said. It's the company culture. And if nobody cares about emails, you have no filters, you're just clicking on everything, that means you really have a poor culture. So this is where you start changing your strategy, risk management. It comes from top, from leadership. This is actually how banks operate. And many small businesses could benefit also from learning from this knowledge.
I agree, Tom. Boy, yes, you did say a lot of very poignant points there, a lot of poignant things. With the state of Maryland, I know we've implemented something called a SCRIM program, which is, based on state cybersecurity resiliency for small businesses, anything under 50. And the way we've put together the pilot program is to provide services and training to selected businesses, small businesses within the state. They do have to go through an application process, which is pretty easy. It's just basically to find out how many people they have, income, all that type of stuff to make sure that they qualify. It's not some large entity that's trying to get free services. And in doing so, we're offering, I think it's like $9,500 to start off the first part of the program, and offer assessment services for them, and then have it generate an assessment report, and then move on to a training portion where everybody in the company is offered training that's also covered as well through SBDC. So it's cyber hygiene training for everybody in the company. To your point, Tom, everybody has to be trained in cyber. And then specific training for anybody that's also trying to, or for that, if they specific to the industry, whether it's medical, manufacturing, whatever the case may be. And then finally, we end up providing like $10,000 for mitigation services as well. And all these services are provided by cyber companies that were vetted by the state as well. And having said that, I think that sets sort of a precedence for how important cyber is for everybody. Everybody in the company is trained. But in addition to that, these small businesses who otherwise couldn't afford these cyber services, which I think is really one of the challenges that we're seeing, is able to obtain a secure posture and then continue that cyber posture with the continuity report that's provided for them at the end, so that they're able to meet those challenges as we go through. The last thing I'll mention about that too is that it's cross-sector. I loved how you said that, Tom. That is so very important right now, that cyber no longer is siloed. It really does stretch across all sectors. The Chris Cleary quote that I always use is that cybersecurity is like peanut butter and it spreads across all sectors. So it's definitely just as important as your accounting firm, your accounting department, your marketing, your HR. Cybersecurity is just another important aspect of your business that you really can't live without. So, so thank you for speaking about that, Tom. I totally agree with you. Bill?
Sure, thank you.
Well, thank you both, Tom and Kim. I did discover that there is a question and answer block that I had not opened up before, and there's some wonderful questions in there. And every time you do this, I learn something. Paul asks a very insightful question. He says, is there a banking strategy for preventing quantum computing from breaking current encryption methods?
So this is actually one very interesting question. And it's not only quantum computing, technology changes. When you look backwards, 2010, what have we seen since 2010 till now, in the past 13 years? New technologies, there's cloud adoption, Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, all these things are coming all the time. And banks, they have to adapt to these technologies. First, there are huge cost savings by deploying these technologies, but one thing is constant here, and this is the human factor. It always stays the same. You have humans, but there's new technology keeps coming, and this is what I was talking about, cyber psychology here, this intersection. With everything new that's coming technologically, we as people need to understand how this works. Are we educated enough? Do we know how do we interact with everything? So going to preventing quantum computing. I know banks are looking into how to utilizing quantum computing. So this is definitely the future. So when we talk about strategy, their strategy constantly changes. Every year you have a strategy for the next 5 years that's adapting to everything. So yes, there are strategies also for quantum computing.
Thank you. There are two questions that are very similar, so I'm going to combine them into one. V. Grimaldi asks, are there some recommendations on training for the cybersecurity professionals? But Marco also asks, are there any out-of-the-box or similar tools that would help prepare small businesses to small and medium businesses to understand that they need to create an environment? So really a two-tiered question. At the very elementary level, for everybody, are there out-of-box solutions that pre-boxed training, I guess you could say. And then for those that are already in cybersecurity but want to take it to the next level of understanding, what recommendations do you suggest for them?
Okay, so first question, out of the box solution. There is not one solution that will fit everyone. This is what's really important to understand. There's nothing off the shelf that you can just buy and you solve your problem. As I said, it's really important that you understand first your mission, your vision, your values of your company, your beliefs of your company, and what does cybersecurity means for you. And then you build your strategy. And part of the strategy is a risk assessment. In risk assessment, you would identify all the assets that are important to you, that are vulnerable, the threats that you are anticipating that will happen. And then you will actually get a better overview. Okay, what do we have? We have data that's the most valuable. Do we have, I don't know, some in a plant, we have, I don't know, some hardware that's really important for us. What are we protecting? You have to define the scope first of what you want to protect. Once you have the scope defined and proper risk assessment, then you can actually set up your budget and understand how much do you need to invest. And as I mentioned before, this holistic approach, it's really important. You look at technology, you look at people, and you look at processes. So technology, the easiest thing is to buy technology, but without proper processes, and people who can use this technology, what's the point of spending money on something like that? So the best thing is, if you don't have experience, you have to look for help, for somebody who can help you build a strategy, and then you get actually the answer. What are the next steps? And there is nothing that will be fixed immediately. These are the programs that can last probably 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. It all depends how you define your scope. And scope is the key. And then you have strategy around the scope, because maybe there is no need to protect everything, but if you have data that's really important, then you protect this special data set that's important to you. So what was the second question? Was about education, right?
Yes, I think actually
Okay.
I need to stop you there because I'm looking at the time, and we'll go ahead and bank that question for another day. Uh, I want to encourage people, on the slide, you will see Tom's email address. If your question did not get answered, or if you want to continue a dialogue with him, it's right there, vazdar@riscoria.eu. And also I'll be sending the slides to everybody. But I'm watching the time and I know that we need to keep moving. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the questions now and just continue on. Now, I want to mention that there is one more webinar in the Women in Cyber Leadership series. It is next month on December 14th. I'm really excited about this. We'll be hearing from Dr. Diane Janicek, the former lead for the National Cryptologic University, on data governance and compliance in ubiquitous digital world. I always joke with people, if you can say that quickly, hats off to you, because getting all those words in there. But it's going to be a great webinar on data governance. Then in January, we move away from the Women in Cyber series, but we continue with some very intriguing topics on January 18th with Dr. Brooks, cyber threat intelligence driven phishing awareness programs. And Tom has just been talking about phishing. This one will specifically focus in on phishing awareness programs and how they work. Very intriguing presentation in February with Dr. Burrell, the author of 190 plus peer-reviewed journal articles. Well, finding your scholarly voice using peer-reviewed publications to showcase your expertise. Many people do not realize that they have the capability of writing excellent articles that could help them in their career, and he will be talking about how to make that happen. Now, to register for any of the webinars, to view them on demand, just go to captechu.edu/webinar-series. I also want to mention that this is a blatant commercial, but forgive me for that. Capital offers regionally accredited online certificates, undergraduate degrees, graduate degrees, all related to cybersecurity. As you can see here, a massive list of more than 20 different programs, plus the online science degree at the bachelor's level. And that you can, if you're interested in any of those, let us know. We'll be happy to talk to you more about it. We also offer a monthly information session, and you can find out more about it there. Now, we're nearly done. I'm working fast now to stay on time. A copy of the slides and a link to the recording will be sent to all registrants. Watch for that email. When you get that email, if you would like a certificate of completion, just reply what you want on the email with your name that you want on the certificate, and we will be happy to supply it. By the way, for those that are viewing this on demand later on, you are also eligible for a certificate of completion. So if you'd like to receive one, just let us know in that same email. I really appreciate you joining us today. So watch for that follow-up email, but I particularly want to thank our main presenter, but also our host, Kim, for a wonderful job today. And again, I encourage you to continue the dialogue. This is so vital and so important to all of us. And Tom, you did not talk about this, but I'd like to just end with this thought. Not all phishing attempts and all cyber attacks occur at the business level. Many of those occur at the personal level as well. So understanding it because of where you work and understanding what to do may protect you as well at a very highly personal level, to protect your life savings or to protect your security of your information. So what you shared today is really appropriate for every single person in the audience, because there's no question that we're basically in a battle every day with cyber, and if we want to win, we know what we need to know what we need to do. But thank you all for this, and with that, we will end the presentation. And I look forward to having you join us again next month with Dr. Janicek.